Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. This is the first channel of many in this place, which is today called India. I'm going to save some information for a time when there is a group of those who live here with us. And it's going to be information about what is different here. All over the planet, my partner takes me to unique areas. And each one of them will have an energy that is specific. But some will have a culture which is more than specific. It is unique to the planet and spiritually significant. You sit in one of these, which is ancient and spiritually significant, more than you know or think. When we have more of those who live here with us, I would like to discuss the uniqueness and what is here that is nowhere else on the planet, and what makes it different than any place else. When my partner took me to Egypt, we discussed the significance of the ancient ones and what they were taught, and some of the beauty of the freshness of what they had. When my partner took me to Greece, we discussed so much about origins and what they believed. And we're going to do it again here. But I will save a little of that. Dear ones, I would like to give you a metaphor. Based upon what you have seen today and first impressions, I want you to envision a globe. Only this particular globe or this sphere is pure gold. In fact, it's solid gold. It's the purest gold you can ever imagine. Now, this is a metaphor, and I give these metaphors, these puzzles, so that you will be able to relate to them in a simple way, in a beautiful way. Imagine this globe, so pure that there are those who are tuned to it, to the purity of it. Let us say the purity of the gold represents the purest compassion, peaceful spirit that exists anywhere. Over time, there are those who feel the globe, and they react to it, and they relate to it. They teach because they are on the globe or near the globe. We're living upon the globe. And then over time, it gathers dust. There are some who keep their areas clean so that they can always be in touch with the globe. But still, the purity seems to radiate so that no matter how much dust has been collected, or how many cultures have lived there, or whatever the regions are called on that area, on this pure golden sphere, they feel it. They know there's still pure gold underneath their feet. The region that you are in, not the country, the region is huge, has the sphere of gold underneath it. And over time, there has much that has happened. And it hasn't necessarily diluted the gold, it's diluted the perception of the gold. The more the cultures, the more the dust, the less purity is felt. And yet everyone who lives knows there's purity under their feet at some level. Now, in this land, this region, that sits upon this globe that is pure gold, you have those who are holy men. Someday, they will be holy humans. But today, they're holy men. Let me discuss it, because you're going to see it, and I invite you to see it. There will be those who have the accoutrements of holiness, so you will know who they're supposed to be. Some are connected to the purity of the gold, some are not. And then you will meet those who have no accoutrements. That is to say, you have no idea what they say they are. And you will have to see from feeling it inside of them. So truly, there are several kinds of holy men who you will meet along the way. And I'll leave it to you to decipher. And that is a good word. Not discern, but decipher. Walking through the language and seeing what is real and what is gold and what is not. If you talk to one of the ones who is still connected to the purity, and you said to them, "What do you represent? Tell me in one word." And they may look at you and they would say, "Peace." And you might say, "This is good. In our land, we also have those who are spiritually aware. They want peace for all people, peace for the earth." And they would say, the holy man would say, "That is not the peace that I'm speaking of." And you would say, "Well, what is it?" The one who is connected to the pure gold has wisdom. And now the wisdom will come forward. And that man or woman will say the following: "Peace between the cells of your body." And you would say, "You don't mean peace on earth." And the holy man would say, "When you have peace between the cells of your body, there will be peace on earth." In other words, they turn inward more than any other place on the planet. This is a peace, by the way, that is fresh. It is what we have always taught you from the beginning. Kryon is finally sitting in a place that is from the pure teaching of Kryon. And you will start to recognize it in many, where there is the oneness, where there's the blessing of all, where there's the acknowledgement of God inside, no matter who you are. I want to give you an example that some of you will relate to, of feeling the spirit of oneness in a human being. Some of you listening, or perhaps in the room, went to a very famous Hindu temple on the other side of the earth. There was a Hindu man who was convinced that he had to build a temple of significance in Lemuria, that which is the continent of Mu, which then become the Hawaiian Islands, on the small island of Kauai. And this is where the Hindu temple was founded and started and was going to be built. And he was there because he recognized that this was part of the ancient creation of the planet. And he was right. Some of you have visited this temple with my partner, with me. And the last time we were there, the Hindu man who took the founder's place gave a speech, a talk, a tour of the new temple, which was almost done. And those who went with him and walked with him started feeling something amazing. The man radiated something. He radiated joy. He radiated peace. You wanted to be next to him. You wanted to sit and listen to him. You wanted to be him if you could. There are some on this planet who carry the pure gold with them because they have come from the place where it originated. Some are on the gold, some are on it in a very special way, and some are the gold. And when you walked with this Hindu man in this faraway place, what you felt came from here. It's a beautiful thing if you start to recognize what it is that is here that you haven't felt before. Do not be deceived by the crust that covers the gold today. It's still there. And there are those who feel it, touch it, and there are those who are part of it. Watch for them in these days together. And so the journey begins. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. So this is the second message in this place called India. We're in a beautiful park surrounded by nature. The buildings are here in honor of those who've passed, who made important contributions to the area. Dear ones, yesterday I began a teaching. It was cryptic, it was metaphoric, and that's on purpose. For now we start to fill in the blanks in another short message that will be about the area that you're in and the differences between this area and other places on the planet. I'm going to give a couple of revelations in this day that I will repeat tomorrow for those in the seminars that are locals to the area whom I wish to have hear this. But we're going to repeat and review the metaphor of the golden sphere. You're sitting on it. This pure golden globe or sphere is the metaphor for pure wisdom of spirit. The highest wisdom that is possible on the planet that is connected to the creative source of the universe. The region has this. And in review, the region is not the country, for it extends to a great length. In fact, it is 1/6 of the land mass of the planet. Will have the attributes of the pure gold underneath it, the metaphor of wisdom. I would like to give you a couple of examples right now of how you personally would be able to tap in to the wisdom. For you see, it is at your feet right now. It is no accident that you sit in that place, in a region that is responsible for the highest and first spirituality of the planet. Outside of Lemuria, this is the oldest that would have this kind of attribute of the wisdom that is personal. We'll give you more of that tomorrow. For the individual who is here, I give this information, and for those listening. There are 3 ways to tap in to this purity of wisdom. The first thing is this: you have to want it. Free choice is always the way of it. You could be surrounded with it. You could watch it. You could see it in its pureness. And unless you're interested, it means nothing. You could stand in front of the holiest of holy, one who is doing miracles, then one which is changing physics, which is possible in this place. And yet, unless you are interested, it means nothing. The beauty of this is the free choice of the individual. There are 3 ways to tap into this. Let me tell you what they are. The first is this. You feel it because you have a piece of gold inside you that matches the gold that is in the sphere. This is the piece of wisdom, the piece of God that every single human being is born with and can activate it or feel it if they choose or not. So inside you there is a resonance to the creative system, and that is here. So some of you, as you progress on the trip, will begin to resonate not to the culture, dear ones, not to the city or the area, but to the gold beneath your feet, the metaphor of the wisdom. The one piece that you have will resonate to the whole, and you will realize for the first time that perhaps you're closer to the source than you've ever been before. Number 2, it's in your Akash. Now this is not necessarily for all of you. Many of you have repeated the lifetimes that you've had over and over in your culture, and this culture would not necessarily be remembered, or even one of them. Many of you are more apt to remember Lemuria than this one, unless you spent a lot of time here. But that is the second one. If it is in your Akash, you will feel it, you will know it, and you will move with it. Number 3, you meet somebody, someone, man or woman, who helps you connect the pieces of gold. In other words, a teacher who will then show you how the 2 pieces are connected, your piece of the Creator to the land that you sit in, to the area that is precious and beautiful and filled with the wisdom of literally the creative source. You sit in a special, special place. Those are the 3 ways that you can connect to that which is the region, with the gold, with the purity, with the wisdom, with the teaching of peace inside, with the oneness which comes from here. Did you see the temple you visited yesterday? One of the newest spiritual systems on the planet, the one that perhaps would emulate the shift of the planet. And what it teaches is oneness. This comes from here, the idea that you could put all of the belief systems together in a commonality of thought. And let the rules be the rules, but the commonality is the love of God. And you saw it here. It emanated from here. The very origin of the thought of it and the creation of it and those who put it together were here. It came from the golden globe of wisdom. Now I want to reveal to you a different attribute of this area that no other place on the planet has. This golden globe, did you notice? I called it a sphere. It's a puzzle. It's not a grid. It's not a grid. It's different. Dear ones, the places we have taken you before, which we have revealed to you, had a great deal to do with the earth and the grid system. You went to the place called Ireland, which is much like the Bermuda Triangle, in that the actual energies, some of whom you count on to literally exist, were missing in Ireland, allowing things to be there that are in no place on the planet. But this is location specific. If you go to Ireland and you see perhaps a little people, a little person, that is not an imaginary thing, but an energy that physically is present and that your mind interprets it, you will not then carry that ability home. Perhaps some of you are ahead of me. Dear ones, when you connect to the wisdom, The gold, the purity of this land, it goes and stays and travels with you. You take it away. That's not a grid. That's a resource. So if any of you are changed by this trip and have revelations, not that you've been here, but there is something here that is magic perhaps, or there's something here which resounds to you perhaps. Perhaps a healing would even occur because of the revelation of the pieces coming together in your life. This you take home. This golden sphere of this region is a resource for the planet. Unlike any other place on the planet, you find what you find and you're able then to take it with you and let it grow. Now, I give you the second piece that will help you to understand why yesterday I told you about the Hindu man in Lemuria, the one who started the temple in the place called Kauai. Dear ones, he has created something, and I'm going to explain it. For he took the piece of gold that was wise and put it in that which was the original creative source of the planet, that which is the small continent of Lemuria, which became the Hawaiian Islands. And in doing that, there was a line of energy drawn from the Kauai area to this area, because he took this which was precious and pure, and in him which was pure, he took it there. Now, here's information that will then coordinate what I've told you before. Many of you have studied ley lines. We have told you before that it is not what you think. First of all, they're not necessarily straight. Isn't it interesting today? When you see a schematic of an airline trip, that is to say, the track that it follows from one place in the globe to another, you would expect a straight line. It is an arc instead. This ought to give you a hint of what I speak. Ley lines are not always straight lines from one place to another. So where they are may be deceiving. But there are two things we told you which those who study ley lines are not ready to hear. Number one, they are created by human consciousness. They are not part of Gaia. They are part of the Gaia-human relationship. Number two, they're not necessarily on the surface of the earth. There is a gold strand of energy called a ley line, if you wish, through the earth, from here to Kauai. And that is what this Hindu master did. He knew he had to. It is the reason he went to Kauai. It is the reason there is a temple emulating this in this faraway place. Literally through the earth, the dirt of the earth, there is this magic gold strand that connects this land to the island that he lives and those who ascended him are on. Therefore, what I am telling you is that this place carries something that is entirely and completely different from anything and any place you have ever been before. Not a grid, not just an energy, but a purity of teaching that you can use as a resource. One that goes with you wherever you go. If you're getting the picture, dear ones, wherever you go, you can draw strands of where you are back to this energy and feel again the purity of peace between the cells, of the oneness of spirit that this place is renowned for and will continue to be. And the ancients knew it, and those who live here know it as well. And we say to you in closing, the God in you greets the God in others and greets that which is the golden sphere. The purity is here for you to sense completely as you walk this place. Oh, sensitive one, namaste. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner, I've waited a long time for you to allow me to sit in this place of purity and intuition and origins. 28 years. To be able to be here and to feel the energy and know what is here. It's a special time, a special day. I want to talk about a few things. But there are so many of you who've never felt this live before. Not like this. My partner is connected to the other side of the veil while he channels. In the process of this, he steps aside. In stepping aside, dear ones, it is not an out-of-body experience. That is not needed any longer. He listens, he understands, he can remember what is being said. It's almost like he's standing in the other room with the door just a little open. There is so much here. Dear ones, I know every single one of you. Is that difficult for you? I am not an entity. I'm a piece of the whole, and so are you. If you had to define God, what would it be? Where would it be? What has this meant to you in the past? Where does it lead you to right now as you listen to this message? What if I told you that inside you there is something, an essence, some have called it a soul, and it's forever. Today it's human. 1,000,000 years ago it might have been Pleiadian. 1,000,000 years before that, it was watching planets occur. 1,000,000,000 years before that, it was watching the universe begin in certain places. 14 billion before that, it was in another universe. Dear ones, you are eternal. The eternalness of what is inside of you gives you that which is the wisdom, the purity, the awareness of what is going on the planet right now. I want to talk to you about this purity that my partner felt. He never felt anything like it. Because it isn't on this planet in the way it is on the other side of the veil. This channel is about energy. The next channel will be about information. I want to tell you what's in that purity. What is it that you can feel when you connect? I'm not talking about the information that you would get, about necessarily your help for your life, or how to do this or how to do that. I'm talking about the connection. What does it feel like? What is there? Do you know why I know you? Because there is no separateness in God. There is only a oneness of God. And that means that all of you together are a piece of the oneness of God. I know you because you are part of me, and I am part of the oneness of God. There are many what you would call pieces of God on the planet. You assign those who would help you or fight your battles or wipe away the negativity. or assigned to your health, or relationships, or to your lifespan. But dear ones, there's only one source. I represent the source as I talk to you now, and I want to tell you, in this room there is a gathering beginning. In fact, it was here before you got there, but right now it's beginning to gather with even more. And some of you will feel it, and some of you will know it, and some of you will absolutely remember this day. Because as you start to understand what is happening in the room right now, and you connect to the oneness of every single spiritual system of the planet, there's only one source, one tree. If you start connecting to the one source, everything else goes away. All of the boxes, the rules, the do's and the don'ts, all manufactured by humans for respect of God, but not demanded of God. I want you to know who is starting to arrive, because in the system of the Akash, there is a beauty that some of you have never been told about. The Akash is not just a record. The Akash that every single one of you carries, the history of your experience on the earth, but it's not just the experience. Oh, dear ones, how do I tell you this? These things are buried in deep places in your DNA. They come with you when you're born. It's a lineage of chemistry and also of lifetimes. And many times they're not the same. Lifetimes can be different than the lineage that you carry in your chemistry, but they're all there as energy for you. And with this Akash comes in something else that you didn't expect. There is a system, dear ones. And the system says this, that when you pass over, a piece and a part of the oneness of your soul is passed to your children. And they carry it in their Akash, a piece of you in their experience. It's not linear, and those who told you it was are in a linear box of teaching because they don't know anything else but that. Those you've loved and lost are in your Akash right now. Have you ever had that which is a smell, for instance, of a parent that you've lost, and it comes from nowhere? That's them saying, I'm still here, I'm still here, I'm still here, I'm still here, I'm still here. There are those in the audience who've lost children, and they're still with you. And they will simply, they'll give you signs that are so positive as proof. Mom, I'm still here. Dad, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. There's an assignment that you have, that you'll be with them for the rest of their life, and their children will go into their Akash. It's more than a record. It contains so much more that is a symbol of the love of God for the human being, so that you can move forward, not in grief, but in joy. And that's what I want to talk about. What is it on the other side of the veil that you would feel first? What is love to you? Mom, what is love to you and your child? Let me ask you this. When you think of the birth of your children and the day it happens, are you somber? Oh, you may love them. It might be the greatest day of your life. But you're not somber. You're not sad. You're not angry. You are filled with the most beautiful joy and laughter that is possible with a human being. You want to sing to the heavens of the life form that has come from you. Oh, life giver woman, listen. This is a day for celebration. Is God above that? Do you think God is below that? What I'm trying to say is this, that on the other side of the veil is joy and laughter. Just like when you had the child. Not judgment, not anger, not disappointment. This is the purity of love. My partner said to you earlier, there is a way to tell whether someone is connected or not. There is a way to tell if they're connected or not. When they stand in front of you, do you feel the joy? It's simple, dear ones. If it's some high teacher who sits in front of you, and what they have is all seriousness, demanding this and that, and showing certain kinds of wisdom for this and that, if you don't see the joy, run the other way. For the love of God is something that fills you with the most amazing joy and laughter. It passes through the veil. And life giver, woman, you know what this feels like at the moment of birth and the release. And all the pain that you had the first time you see the infant, all you want to do is laugh and joyful singing. That's God. I want you to feel that right now. Because in this place, right now, is the ability to connect beyond what you thought. You're in the right place at the right time for connection. A connection to the purest of the pure. And what happens if you connect? The cells of your body, all of them, know it. The trillions of pieces of DNA, they all know it. Because that is what you're starting to activate within your own cells. The pieces of gold, of joy. The gold represents the wisdom and the direct connection to God. And they start to vibrate together in the oneness. And finally, after all of the intellectualism that you might have had in the past and the questions, suddenly there are no questions. Only love. And as you take the deep breath of understanding, all things are possible. Because you are connected to the source of joy, of healing, of consciousness, of life. How many of you are aware that the connection to the joy of God will allow you a very long life, and a disconnection shortens your life? Did you know that there is programming in your cellular structure for your death? A clock that ticks, that measures the days and the nights, and unless you talk to it or unless you connect to it, it will do what it does, and the chemistry will win. But as soon as you connect, every cell knows it, and you start to change the clock. You start to be in charge of every single process of your body. You've seen this here, haven't you? You know what if I speak, don't you? The connection is personal. You don't connect for others. You connect with you and your soul. I know your name. I know what you've been through. I know what brought you here. And I want you to know these things. I want you to feel the explosion of things you didn't expect, and what you can bring from this place that will last the rest of your life. if you truly connect this moment, this day, with all that is, I want you to sit for just a moment. It is a traditional thing to think on these things, to enjoy them for just a moment before we continue. What if they were really here? What if the ones you've loved and lost are looking at you now? And they say, well done, my daughter, my son. What if the oneness will win over everything else? It wins over the intellect. It wins over the emotions that you've been told. It wins over the big lie that says they're gone forever. I want you to teach your children well that when your body stops breathing, it simply changes energy and it goes to them. If they will accept it, they will feel you forever, Mom, Dad, just like you feel the ones you've loved right now. This is the oneness. There's no better way for me to teach this to a human being than to relate to what you think is death, for it isn't. Do you dare smile with joy when you think of those departed, instead of the grieving or the sorrow? And if you can, that's the courage of that which is light and connection. If you can feel the joy of the oneness, you're connected. Oh, dear ones, the connection is prime. It comes before anything else. There are some in this audience who have come for a healing. You see, I know who is here. I do. I know what you've been through. There is even a healing going to happen in the group that is not local. Because this is the time for it. You have created a portal of oneness that you are swimming in at the moment. There is so much activity here. Some of you can feel it. And the chills that you might have would agree, and the body knows. Magnificent, all of you. Worthy, all of you. It may not be what you were taught, but it rings with truth. When I return, I want to tell you some things about where you sit, about what has happened in this patch of land, not the country, but the region that represents perhaps 1/6 of the area of the planet that is so different than any other place. And then I want to tell you why. And I'll tell you a little bit about how it was created. It's not the history of India. It's the lineage of God, of those that placed it here for you. I have to ask you something. Logically, if you ask a number of children to look for a prize and you told them it was around a certain forest, and when they found it, something would happen. If you did that, dear adult, let me ask you this. Would you have the innocent children look for a prize that you withheld, that was never there? Or would you carefully hide it, just a little out of sight, so they could find the seed, the prize, the beauty, the gold? And the answer is, adult, that you would indeed plant the prize. You wouldn't have them looking for nothing or never discovering something that was beautiful. The prize is buried here. That's a metaphor. I'll tell you more in a bit. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. The day has its own energy. An energy that perhaps will not be repeated exactly like this. And I want you to know this, to take advantage of it. As I start to talk about some history. Before I do that, dear ones, this is a time of reflection. My partner has explained in the brief time he had that there is a shift on this planet and all will be affected. I give you a plea. Do not judge the future on what has happened in the past. This is something I now say often. And what it means by this is this. What you have been taught in all aspects may very well be what you believe, but dear ones, the future and the changes at hand may go against some of these things. Be circumspect, that is to say, look around before you reject things that might not sit with you very well. It is part of a magnificent shift on the planet. And doesn't it make sense that in order to move into the sunlight, you're going to have to come out of the cave? That in order for you to go on a new path, the old one has to be abandoned. That you cannot move into the new energy necessarily with the old ways, as good as they may seem, as beautiful as they have been in the past to you. So the invitation is to walk into the sunlight without fearing. These things at hand will result in beautiful things happening on the planet, and things that you never expected could. You are the future. The ones who would take the time to listen to this, to acknowledge it, to believe it, to examine it. You are the ones called the old souls. I want to take you back to the beginning for a moment. My partner, I want you to go slow here. There was a time on this planet, the right time, when the seeds of creation came down and gave you something which you would call duality. Some have called it the creation story, and some have referred to it as the Genesis story. The beginning of free choice of the knowledge of good and evil, with the choices to go either way with consciousness. It was the beginning of God inside. Now, it was not that simple. For when this occurred, it wasn't just a change in humanity. It wasn't just the time when you received 23 chromosomes instead of 24. The whole planet was involved. those who represented the seed biology would come, and they implanted this planet with so many things for the future. The esoterics that we have talked about, that few would acknowledge and that science has no idea of yet. The magnetic grid, oh, it was always here. It's here naturally because of what is inside in the molten core of the earth. But it also postures consciousness. It was here before humans were here. So that's not what we're talking about. The grids for humanity were created at the same time you received the seed biology of the 23 chromosomes. The grids that were created, some are familiar with and have heard of before, the crystalline grid. It's a human consciousness grid, the Gaia grid. The Gaia grid belongs to nature, which then responds to human consciousness. Every breath you take is oxygen from the trees and the forests, the microbes and the moss. You are allied with Gaia constantly. The Gaia grid, therefore, is a consciousness grid with Gaia's cooperation. The nodes and the nulls were implanted in case you went past the 2012, and you did. There were a great deal of what we will call esoteric things that were presented to the planet. But there's one we never talked about. Some have said, well, is that when the ley lines were put here? And the answer is no. The ley lines are human consciousness drawing lines from one power place to another that they created as a power place. Portals, not necessarily. They were created as humans created them, based upon the human consciousness of the planet. But there was something else. It's not a grid, dear ones. And we spoke of this in the last channeling, in a cryptic way. In the last channeling we just gave you, we said something. We talked about hiding a prize and then asking humanity to find it. Now, this is not a cryptic puzzle. This is practical. If you're going to have the knowledge of dark and light, dear ones, darkness is the absence of light. So you don't have to find a dark seed in order to use it. Dear ones, darkness will come if you take light away. But to find light, there has to be a seed. The truth of creation, the truth of what and who and where God is, has to reside somewhere to be found. Humans left on their own will not discover it unless it is there to be discovered. All of these years, all of the talk that is esoteric, I could not give you this information until my partner brought me here. The region that you call India and beyond is involved. Cast away the borders for a moment, for it has nothing to do with the country now or in history. It has to do with the planet, a little bit of the topography, and a lot of where you are. The seed is here. We talked earlier about an object in channels before today, a metaphor of a golden globe And we did this on purpose so that it would not be esoteric, so that you could see it as an object. That is how powerful it is, this seed that is in your region. I want you to look at the differences between spiritual systems on this planet as you know them. How they developed, almost every single one developed in a very linear fashion around a prophet. Even if the prophet was teaching the one God, it is the prophet who is revered. It is the prophet whose picture is seen. It is the prophet that is referred to with the doctrines that are given. It is the prophet who gives the truth. Every single one. But that was not the intuition here. In my first channel in this land, I gave an example. If you would ask a holy man in this region, what are you about? Again, I tell you, he might say, I'm about peace. And you would think to yourself, well, that is good. I'm in peace too. I like peace. Peace among men. We need peace on earth. And he would say, I know what you're thinking, and that's not the peace that I represent. And then he would give you the information. Peace between yourselves. Dear ones, I don't want to make this cryptic. I want to tell you that the Pleiadians chose this place to resound with the truth. And the truth is this, is that you are your own prophet. And then if you discover the purity of love, you will go right into the study of yourself. There is no place on this planet that has this truth, this attribute. It flies over generations of history and training to get to this place of knowing, of oneness, and it was always here. This is the prize that was hidden. And therefore, in this land, the first intuitive thinking had to do with the oneness of self and not a prophet. Of the energies that surround the human being, of sacrifice, of help, of health, and you can call them whatever you want to. But they're not prophets. Indeed, the truth of what the Pleiadians brought you in your DNA resounds to the teaching that was given here originally. Not only is it about self, think of this. How does the body work? How many meridians are there? What is the energy? What is karma? What is a past life? How do you treat your Akash? Every single one of those things is not about a prophet. It is not about your behavior. It is not about doctrine. It's not about do's and don'ts and rights and wrongs that may have come later through humanism. No. It's the only place in the planet that the seed of truth was planted for you to find. It's about self. The original understood this. The original spiritual system, literally, of thousands of years ago, was all about self. The oneness of spirit between the cells of the body, when they combine together to create peace with themselves, that will then create peace with each other. Peace on earth requires peace between the cells. This is the teaching of the region. And you won't find it anywhere else unless you took it there. The karma of the Indian is to be an Indian. And we've talked about the karma as being an old energy system. In order to complete energies that were not completed in one life to another. In order to push and pull reactions. It puts you in places to find things you wouldn't have found otherwise. And now we tell you this, Indian. The very thing that may be the pillar of belief is starting to change. Karma is a disappearing energy because in the light you don't need it. It'll get in the way of your intuition. You do not need to complete anything from a past life because this life has more light in it than any life you've ever had. And the next one, even beyond this. And karma is not needed anymore. These are controversial concepts to those who grew up with this and believe in it. Dear ones, doesn't it make sense that in the light you can walk a different path? And this planet is starting to illuminate itself. Isn't it interesting? As you watch the belief systems on this planet evolve, they will evolve to what you started with. Oneness. Understanding it has to start with each individual and the cells within to raise a consciousness to a place where there can be an explosion of enlightenment. Explosion of enlightenment. We've never used the phrase before because here is where that is possible. In other parts of the world, it is not an explosion because the source is not there to explode to. It's a study, an awareness, a gradual thing of graduation. But here, you're hooked in to the source. This is where they hid the truth. The golden sphere is a metaphor for the pure truth of oneness for all humanity. You had to have it somewhere to be discovered, to find it. And then it was free choice on what to do with it. But you found it here. It doesn't stop there. I would like to tell you something that happened. And now we will go back into history, and it's very recent history, to show you the preparation for what happens next for you. For the purity of the oneness is going to start showing itself even more than it ever has before. Those who claim to know things that don't will start to fail and fall, because it'll be obvious they only have the oneness of themselves. They don't have the oneness that is at the source, that is the purity of love, the love of God. Oh, let me tell you a story. There was a man who was born in the United States, but his lineage was Indian. And his Akash was filled with India. You might say he knew that in there somewhere was the truth. Eventually, he was brought home to his karmic family. And in that, over 40 years, he had an explosion of enlightenment, awareness, and more. He was going to have actually 2 to 3 explosions of awareness over time. But the first one he had was the connection to Source. This man was Hindu. He saw light he had never seen before. He understood the very source information that the Pleiadians put here. He was connected so well. His name? It's a short name for a longer one. Guru Deva. And in 1970, he made what he called a pilgrimage of himself to Lemuria. I would like to tell you what happened there and what happened in his second explosion of awareness. Because in this, he was tapped into the Pleiadian energy, the core, the seed that was put here, and he knew what to do with it. You see, he knew the shift was coming. There had to be a connection between the source of Indian, by an Indian, through an Indian, to Lemuria. The nodes and the nulls were not connected in that fashion. It had to come from him. And in 1970, he went to Lemuria, to what they call the Garden Isle. And on this place, this man decided to put together a temple. And in his belief system and what he carried with him was a piece of the gold. And this is what we told you before. It is not a puzzle. The grids of this planet cannot be carried from one place to another. But the truth that has been planted here, once you are filled with it, can be transported anywhere on the planet. And that's why Indians are going to start being reincarnated to other places. The Akash is going to change. And the reason, because when you awaken in another culture, another society, you have the piece of the truth. And it starts to spread to other areas. This Indian karma keeps you together. Isn't it amazing that 1/5 of the world's population lives here? You never go away. You always reincarnate as Indian. And it builds and it builds and it builds, and no one leaves. Now they will. Not necessarily physically, but through the Akash. You'll start spreading this gold truth in many ways to other cultures very slowly. Dear ones, this was the plan all along. That if you made it past 2012, this is the essence of the truth. The oneness of yourselves, no profit, is the oneness of God. Guru Deva started to build his temple, knowing that there was a connection between Lemuria and India. And he is the one who connected it. Don't you find it interesting? He was able to do this so easily. A foreigner can't necessarily go and buy land and do these things and have all the legalities. But you see, he was an American citizen. Do you see some of the planning in advance? The Indian born in the United States. He had no trouble at all doing what he needed to do And then the second explosion of enlightenment happened in 2006. Do you see how recent these things are? There was the potential of the shift happening all the time. He had connected profoundly India to Lemuria. You might say there was a golden thread, a ley line beneath the earth, a full connection between the golden seed connecting to that which was the origin of the Pleiadians. But that's not all. The second explosion, he started channeling. And what he channeled, no one on this planet has ever channeled and will not channel for a long time. He channeled information that the Pleiadians gave him, but he didn't plan it in the way you think. It's not like a channel of today, not like you're listening, for he had a timeless channeling. He went to a place where time is suspended, and that is the way it is on the other side of the veil. And he saw 1,000,000 years of Pleiadian history leading up to the seeding of this planet and where it took place, even where he was in Lemuria. 1,000,000 years of Pleiadian history is available to you through a book that he channeled as an Indian, because he was connected to the source. No one has done that. And the book is called the Lemurian Scrolls. And if you take a look at it, you will see a channeled message from the seed source of their history in a timeless manner that boggles the imagination. All because he got it from here. The system was in place. His life purpose was known. Guru Deva, born in one place in order to facilitate another with a lineage of the truth of India. An enlightenment that happened in a short 40 years that would take him on Lemuria till 2011. He never got to see the shift. But it doesn't matter, for it was all set and ready. A beautiful place. Now you know who he is, what he did, and why. There's a 4-year-old boy right now in southern India who is Guru Deva. Will he remember it? We'll see, for he has free choice. But some of you will see it in a few years and will say, it has to be him. He's 4. These are the things that I came to tell you that are magnificent. It explains why this is so different, and the beliefs in the original fashion were so different. And then the unspoken that I cannot really tell you much about until it's discovered. I have told you there's 50,000 years of history on this planet, and yet you track yours back to only about 13 or 14,000. There was India before India. And the seed truth was always here for 50,000 years. There were civilizations that awakened here before yours with the truth. The difference is this: yours remained. Yours was developed. Yours was seen. Yours has lasted right into the shift. Yours got taken to Lemuria by Guru Deva. And that is the significant difference. A man in his path, little known, made a big difference because he was Indian. I want you to think about this. The lineage that you have, the responsibilities that are there, the reasoning behind things that are here. And then I want you to remember my words. Look for the joy. This is the test. Look for the joy. For the holy man or woman will exhibit the love of God, and it will shine through their face, and you will see the celebration of oneness, and you'll know it. This is why I came. Namaste. And so it is.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. We are still in India, and this is an extension of the teaching of the last channel. This is profound information, but it comes in puzzles, as you will see. First of all, we are in a park. More than that, it's a beautiful area, an ancient area that has been set aside for the calculations of the horoscope for the culture which is India. The study of astrology is primary to this culture. Their systems are unique, and it's interesting here to see the very instruments that they have used to calculate that which is the energy of the child who is born. Dear ones, I want to talk about not that, but I wish to talk about instead something else that happens when the child is born. There have been many that have asked the question, tell me about the God inside. The very greeting in this land, which is Namaste, has many sections of understanding. But the basic is this, that the greeting of the God in me greets the God in you. Now, you wouldn't have that kind of a greeting unless there was a full understanding that inside the human there is something divine. In other parts of the world and in other systems, this isn't even close to being the truth for them. There is no God inside. There is no divinity in a human being. But here there is. For again we say to you, the source information of the region was just that. That inside you dwells something that is part of the Creator of the universe. And in this modern age, where the shift has occurred, there are those who are starting to awaken to this very fact. Over and over the question has been, how do I find the God inside? Some have even called it the star seed, since there is an acknowledgement in so many cultures that you have come from the stars. We have identified this many times as coming from that which is Pleiadian. But dear ones, whatever you wish to call it, there is the divinity of the Creator in you. Not of some other soul, not of a prophet, but the essence of creation, God, is inside. So what is the next step? There are so many who will say, I wish to find it. I want to hook it, combine it. I wish to put it together with the God that is around me, the God that created me. For when I put them together, so it is said, I'll have the explosion of enlightenment. This is actually true. This is what we have taught from the moment that I visited my partner in the chair for the first time. However, we are in a land where this particular question is something that you can answer far easier than in the West. And I'm going to show you through metaphors how to do it. Now, this is just an example, but I'm going to set the stage so that you understand better what you're up against. Dear ones, this is the search in duality. You are born with free choice, and this God inside is not obvious. It hides. We gave you the metaphor before of hiding a prize for a child. The prize in this particular case, in this metaphor, is that which is the golden truth of spirit. And if you were to seek this and find it, this would be a combination of your God inside connecting with the God that is universal. In this region, dear ones, that truth is everywhere. It is the essence of all of the ancient history of the region. It is the essence for the belief systems which came from this region, ancient ones, thousands of years old. They immediately saw an inward turn, not an outward. To find God, you turn inward, not to a prophet, not to another God. In addition, they saw that many were turning to other gods and other systems. And so what they said was, one tree with many branches, all are welcome. Dear ones, this is the oneness that is self-evident when you study in this land. This prize that hides for the child. Let's continue that metaphor. So here are children looking for the prize. And I've used this metaphor for a reason, and now you'll see why. When a child finds the prize that is hidden, perhaps behind the tree, in perhaps a game that you would play, the prize is obvious and the child picks it up, works with it immediately. Perhaps it's a toy. Perhaps it's more to them. All of this I want you to look at, for the child is innocent. The child has not built an intellect of belief yet. The child is open for anything. Therefore, the child finds the prize, and immediately there's an explosion of joy as the prize is discovered, and the child holds it high in its hand and says, "Look, I found it." And the child knows what it is. But, dear ones, the adult does not. You could look at the prize. You could see it. You can wonder if you found it and never know it. And the reason is because the boxes of intellectual belief and expectation are firmly glued in place through years of experience, and those that have taught you certain things, like where it might be, what to do with it, or how not you can find it. Therefore, the adult has a difficult time with location of it. I have another metaphor. Pretend for a moment that adult intellect was like a spotlight, a torch, a flashlight, and you were looking everywhere for this piece of God. You might say you're looking for the light, but your intellect is linear, and it has its own light, Here is the premise. You cannot find a hidden light by using a light, for it's going to cover it up. As soon as you shine your intellectual light on the truth, it vanishes in your intellectual light. I will tell you, dear ones, the first and basic secret to finding the star seed, or that which is your higher self, or anything that you want to use in language that describes the God inside. Here is what it is. Turn off your intellectual light. Examine right now for a moment what you have been taught and dissolve it into nothing. For this is what covers the truth. It always does. Now I add this. We're in a place that is renowned for the history of discovery, of turning inside yourself. And what do they do here which is most profound? Dear ones, the meditators of the planet are here. In this region, this is where the meditation started, developed, matured, prospered, and worked. Meditation. Don't get it confused with something you've learned. Meditation is disengagement from self. You must become quantum and not linear. And in order to do that, in the past, it took hours to reach a place where you could disengage from your linearity. Today, you can do it instantly, if you're willing, if you can dissolve what you've been told. Turn off the intellect, go inside, and be with yourself. Sit in silence and let these things start to come to you without you searching for them. So, dear ones, the God inside has always, always been available for every single human on this planet. Here, it can happen faster, for the processes are known. This is the message, and always has been, of Kryon. Inner peace will eventually create outer peace. But it must start individually, with the human being, not the intellect and not a linearity. Getting to a place of full disengagement, where you can let that which is quantum in your cells fill the very essence of your mind and your being. And when you do, you will start feeling things. Perhaps tears will run down your face in acknowledgement of the greatest love that has ever and ever will be there from the creative source, and your soul will start to be activated with the truth and the beauty of the oneness of who you are. There's a lot here to discover, isn't there? You've come to the right place, dear ones, for the land is filled with it everywhere you look. The purity of it is up to you. But that is the message of the day. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Once again, we are in a public place. And the channeling today is going to be about something that this land is very familiar with. But dear ones, I am mostly speaking to those who are not in this country. So I want to review something, as I often will in these channels, to make it even clearer what is going on here, what has happened here, and then add to it just a little. It's a precious place,
where the truth and the core information is intuitive. And we've talked about the region, not about the country. And it's important that you understand that the region is a little bigger than you would expect. Parts of India, Tibet, Nepal, China, all included in this. If you take a look at some of the core belief systems which began here, in the civilization you are living in now, it was the origin of the whole idea of connecting to Source individually, one by one, personally. And this is a review, for we've given you this information before. I want to reiterate, to repeat, that this is not a grid. It doesn't belong to Gaia. This is the seed, the golden truth that was put in this region so that it could spread from here. Be found if you wish to find it. And again, I will say, the difference is remarkable. Those who awakened in this area immediately went inward. Those who awaken in other areas must follow prophets and other things that would lead them to the same core truths, but in a more difficult way. There is more empowering here to the individual, for they sit in a land that has this attribute. The metaphor that we gave you was the golden globe, a wonderful seed golden truth that rings so well and so compassionate in this area. It speaks of compassion and kindness and joy. And these are the attributes, again, we will tell you to look for in the holiest of holies in this holy place. In a place that is renowned for wisdom, for gurus, for wise men. Look for the joy. For this is the truth of who is that truly connected person and who is not. And that's what we wish to talk even more about now. The connectedness is the oneness that we have described that an individual can have. And there are many kinds of oneness. And I wish to describe a little more about that. You can imagine, can you not, how many kinds of meditation there is in these places. We are in, right now, the holiest city in India for the Hindus. The holiest place. So you might think to yourself, in India, this would be some of the most profound meditation places here. That's not exactly so. We will talk about that at another time. But I wish to talk about meditation. How many kinds of meditation do you think there are? And what does it mean? Are there things about it, perhaps, that are more complex than you think? So I wish to just tell you a little bit. The first thing I wish to say is not a criticism. It is simply a fact that the Western world meditates completely different than those who have discovered the source. There are few, actually, especially in the beginning, there are few who would ever in India give you something you call a guided meditation. A guided meditation in the Western world is a place where you sit and meditate, but you have someone talking the entire time telling you what to meditate on. Think about that.
It's almost like it's counterintuitive to the real meditation process, which is you, with you, developing the ideas of meditation by yourself with your consciousness in pure and complete silence. It's a big difference, isn't it? And so the guided meditation is designed to bring somebody to a place where they can then learn to begin to do something which is intuitive here from the beginning. Let's talk about meditation here. Dear ones, all of it is appropriate, and there's so much of it to discuss. But let me give you just 4 basic kinds. I won't even call them kinds. I'll just say attitudes or attributes of the whole. The first one is not a meditation inward at all. It's a meditation developed from your own power as a meditator connected to the source for others. It would be a meditation for the planet, a meditation for the area, a meditation for the sick, a meditation for peace. And you would then collectively assign that which you are doing for the group. Sometimes it's individual. That's number 1. And I want to say something about that kind of meditation. And that is this: it works. Forever, almost in every single belief system, you have heard the term, when 2 or more are gathered together, there is an increased power, if you wish to use the word, of the meditation, the subjects. For the individuals together create a confluence of energy which goes right to Gaia, right to the grids which make sense to human beings. When enough people pray for peace on earth, you get peace on earth. It's an influence. It really pushes energy around in a very special, gentle, benevolent way. I wanted you to know this. Some know this and some have questioned this. Wherever you are on the planet, when you are with others, you can do these things. That's number 1. But 2, 3, and 4 are complete personal kinds of meditation. And I wish to discuss each one of them very briefly. Number 2 is meditation for peace within. This would be those who are in anxiety, and they are meditating for themselves appropriately so that they can be not part of the world around them, but the part of the world within them. And inside you is that piece of gold, the higher self, the connection with God. And in that, you wish to find the peace that will go beyond any anxious thing. This is a person who believes that they can change themselves, especially in the area of anxiety, fear, worry. And so most of the time when they would meditate, it would be so they could find a place of peace for themselves and think upon the things that would be the opposite of the things that they experience, the affirmations for the soul, the things that make them who they are, and come out of it as a peaceful individual. That's 2. Number 3 is another within turning. That is when you start to work on your own cellular structure. Not necessarily just for the peace over anxiety and fear, but a complete and total cellular recalibration. In this, you pray for yourself, for the healing of your body, for the body processes to be appropriate and clean and pure. You might even see within yourself the clearing of your own akash, the clearing perhaps of karmic energy, which we've told you is now under your control. It is an inward meditation that can even change the physics of your body. We have told you before that you can touch the multidimensional parts of your own soul, of your own structure, thereby changing the physics around you to be different than everyone else's. Not to elaborate too much, but it's an inward, very specific meditation where the very cells are one. So far we've told you about the meditation for the oneness of humanity. The second kind of meditation is the oneness for peace within. The third kind is the oneness for cellular structure. And I'm going to say something that is confusing to you. In all of these that I've discussed, have you literally touched the piece of the Creator that is gold within you yet? Have you connected your piece to that which is on the earth here yet? And the answer is not necessarily. We told you some time ago that you could have peace within your own soul and never be connected to Source. This has always been something that you can do for you. You could even have someone bend spoons and have physics change around them and not be connected to Source. That's the power you have of the human being. You can meditate for specific things and achieve them, and yet you not have that explosion of enlightenment that connects you and that higher part of you with what is here in this land. So that's the fourth kind. It's the explosion. It's a meditation that is completely and totally designed by you to connect that piece of God inside of you with the creative energy that resides in this part of the earth. Now let me tell you something. That one is hard. But I'll tell you something else. If you are accomplishing it even a little, it also covers number 1, 2, and 3. It's all together. And the thing that makes it tough is that for the first time you're dealing with pure, non-linear oneness. It becomes a oneness with the creative source, which is not linear, which is multidimensional. It's the search for the seed of the Creator in you and the connection to it. And when you find that, dear ones, that's when the joy starts, because all of the other kinds of meditation are automatically part of number 4. That is the big one, the hardest one. It is the one that you want to sit at the feet of somebody who has done it and listen, where they will have information and wisdom and joy and benevolence that you can feel come from them as a master teacher. And they are in this land. In the last channel we told you, and the one before we hinted at, that there are ways of finding the connection between you and that which is the Creator. And one of them is being with somebody who has discovered it, because they then will enhance what you are searching for. And again, I tell you, the secret is not to become intellectual, is to practice erasing all pretenses of anything you have ever learned
from anyone about how this might work, for it is far grander than anyone knows. Look for the joy. Look for the benevolence. And that is when you will know that you are close to finding something that is not that elusive, especially here in this place. And that is the teaching for the day, coming to you from this restaurant. And so it is.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great. I'm asked to say a little prayer on behalf of everybody in this group, to Mother Ganga and to all other people. Well, this prayer is very famous in Varanasi, and that we do in every ritual. When the ritual will start here in front of you, the same prayer they will also do. So the same prayer I am going to sing for you. Just enjoy the wonderful vibration of that prayer. Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Gananam Tva Ganapati Gunghavamahe Priyanam Tva Priyapati Gunghavamahe Baso mama aham garbhadhama tvam jasi garbhadhama. Om Bhadram karnebhihi shunyama devaha Bhadram pashyemakshabhiryayatraha Sthirairangai tushtovangam swastanubhi vyashemadevahitam yadayuhu. Om swastina indro vriddashravaha swastina pukhaha vishwavedaha swastina staraksho arishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspatir Dadhatu. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantam Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Vishvesham Madhavam Dhundhim Dandapanim Cha Bhairavam Vande Kashi Guham Ganga Bhavani Manikarnikaha. Om Sanandamanandavane Vasantam Anandakandam Hatpapa Vrindam Varanasi Nathamanatanatham Shri Vishwanatham Sharanam Prapadyai. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritam Gamaya. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Only the last three lines I would like to tell you what is the meaning. I said Asato Ma Sadgamaya. O God, take me from the incorrect, from the lie, from the illusion to the perfection. Second was Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Take me from the darkness to the light. And finally, Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya. Take me from the death to immortality. That is the meaning of total prayer. So, thank you very much. God bless you, everybody. Be happy. Thank you.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. We are not in a public place. We are in a very public place. Dear ones, what you hear behind me is the activity in Varanasi at the Ganges steps. This is indeed one of the most holy places you could be in this land of joy. And what you hear behind me as those celebrate and bathe is joy. Let there be no mistake that this is a joyful place filled with celebration, that they could be here at all. It's in contrast to so many systems which also have steps to climb and water to wash in. This one is different. Even before I tell you more about the land of 100,000 temples, I want to review something with you that we have not spoken of before for a long time. This is the Ganges. And this is something that perhaps you have heard about all your lives. You've also perhaps heard of what else might be here. I would like to remind you of something that we have taught for now 28 years. Consciousness changes physics. We have given you scientific proof. We have given you that which is validation over and over. And the teaching we have said that when you become one with your own cells, you can change the literal physics not only inside you but around you. This is the premise of the Kryon work, which is also the key of the teaching of the Hindu. We have been teaching for so long some of the premises to the West that the group here in the millions understand intuitively and have been taught from birth. If you stopped one of these and spoke of past lives, they would know exactly what you're speaking of. If you talked about ascension and God inside, they would all know what you're speaking of. But let me tell you something else that they may not be aware of, not at a personal level. There was a scientist, a Japanese man named Masaru Emoto, and he proved conclusively as a crystallographer that water could be changed with consciousness. The idea that consciousness itself has an energy and a power that can change the physics of molecular structure was proven by Emoto. And here we are at perhaps the center of one of the most polluted places by perception of the planet. And yet they swim in it and they wash in it and they drink it. I am telling you right now that in the area you're very, very close to and sitting in right now, there are millions collectively who have a consciousness to clean this water. And it works. Not only that, the unspoken is the joy and the miracles and the mysticism that happens where you sit. And there will be story after story after story of what happens here, some of which is never made public because of the consciousness of belief and the celebration of the oneness and the release that is here. Dear ones, physics is different in this area. And this has been proven over and over. The land is known as the land with 100,000 temples. So I want to do something briefly with you. It's something we did not too long ago in the land called Egypt. I want you to think about building your own temple. Inside the oneness temple, it will be yours, and the temple is in honor of the higher self or God inside. This is what has been taught for 28 years by Kryon. In every single human being, there is God. There is no accident that you exist. You are here for a reason. And you are all identical, all humans made and created equal with the God inside. So let's build a temple to the God inside right now. And if you did such a thing in this place, this amazing place, how would you start? What would the foundation be for your temple? The temple to the higher self of oneness within you. What energy? How would you categorize the foundation? So I'm going to give you the answer. I want the foundation to be truth. The foundation has to be unshakable. It has to survive earthquakes and floods and trauma in your life. And the only thing that could survive this would be basic truth of God. And the truth we speak of is what is celebrated right now. One God, inside each, seen by all, greeted by the Namaste. This is the one truth, and it is planetary. It belongs to all. Not necessarily believed by all, but it is there. This is the basic truth of the land. This is the gold we spoke of. And this is the foundation of your temple. Next, add the walls, the pillars that are going to support the top of the building and the roof. And what would those be? What would that be to support such a thing as the grandness of the roof? Let's make that knowledge. And that knowledge is pure. And the knowledge is what you receive through the Akash for years and years as you become an old soul. The Akash is that accumulation of all that you have lived through and all that you have collected. Let's let that Akash and the knowledge of the ages-old soul support what is next coming. You have the truth of the foundation. You have the pillars now built of the knowledge that you have that brings you to this place. And the final thing, almost, will be the roof. The roof must then cover and support. It will enclose you into this bubble that your temple then will be complete with. And the roof will be made of love, that which supports you above, that which you can count on to shield you from all things, from the negativity, from the frustrations, from the inhumanity. Love will be that which is your roof and shield you from all of these things. In this beautiful temple that you put together by yourself. And you may now say, well, the temple is complete. Well, it is not. For you have to describe what is inside the temple. It is a temple to honor your higher self, the oneness of all things. And yet inside it there's something extremely personal. And I'll tell you what it is. It has a name, and the name is self-worth. In other words, it will shield and support the fact that you are a magnificent creature called a human being with a soul that has in it and with it the oneness of God. The self-worth says, I belong here. I can do anything here. I can change the physics even of the surrounding I have here. I control my own future here. I am that I am. In this precious place that is so joyful to so many, as the celebration continues on the steps of the Gandhi, can you do this? Can you be part of this? Can you be one with what you hear and you see? Can you celebrate the bathing of those around you who are doing just that? And in their own way, my partner says they're giving each other high fives, which means they celebrate each other's celebration. I want you to listen for a moment to what you hear. Dear ones, this is the oneness with humanity, with the elements, even with the river. Don't forget this moment. And so it is.
So what a beautiful sanctuary we're in right now. And let's take advantage of this beautiful space, this quiet moment, this sanctuary, these super comfortable chairs. And close your eyes. Relax your head. Relax your neck. Relax your shoulders and arms. Relax your hands. Relax your back. Relax your chest. Relax your abdomen. Relax your thighs. Relax your knees. Relax your legs. Relax your feet. Feel all the tension melting away from your body, effortlessly draining. And now allow your feet to connect with the energy of the earth. Underneath us, we are on Mother India. And imagine the golden globe of purity that's within the region, under the surface, under your feet, but connected through the golden threads. And allow your feet to connect with this golden energy of purity. And bring that purity up through your feet, through your legs, through your knees, up through your thighs, your abdomen and your chest, your back, your hands, your arms, your shoulders, up through your neck and the top of your head, and out through your crown chakra. And allow this beautiful connection with Mother India and the cosmos streaming through your body, a benevolent love that exists within the space between your cells. And just allow yourself to relax. There's nothing to do. simply allow to receive the golden energies.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. We are back in the city of Delhi, in a beautiful room that is quiet. It is the end of the first section of the India tour. Dear ones, I want to reflect on some things that I've said in the past about an evolving humanity. I want to discuss some things that would seem to be not germane or pertaining to India. But I'm going to finish it with a prophecy. If you took a look at what sociologists say about war, why has humanity had war all through the history? It seems like literally there would be only a slight vacation, and then there would be war. Almost from the beginning of human history, you would see that war was constant. And it seemed to be everywhere, not exclusively to one place or another. Even your definitions of the hemispheres is absolutely true in certain ways. And yet there are exceptions. The conquerors, the war hemisphere, brought war into the south. So all hemispheres had their wars. If you took a look at why, and you have been paying attention perhaps to what I have told you, and what sociologists may also look at, but not totally understand, there are several attributes. Now stay with me, because this will then turn around into something else. First of all, you have a lower consciousness humanity. If you look at humanity and where you've come from and where you've gone, there is definitely an evolution of consciousness. When you started, you could see that it was low. That's one reason. The other reason that in this consciousness that is low, you would have some attributes. One of the attributes is isolationism because of fear. Fear of the other group, competition for what perceived to be limited resources. And then there's the one that the sociologists don't know about. I'll call it a short lifetime attribute. In other words, human beings didn't live long enough to remember that war doesn't work. Lifetimes were short. They still are, dear ones. Your grandmothers and grandfathers will remember a war, and then there is no one to remember. It should be a longer Akash with longer lives so that you'd have the wisdom to remember that it doesn't work. But if you take a look, that was missing as well. So if you look at these attributes, the question is this: if you turned around all of those attributes, would it then create peace? And the answer is yes. And this is what I have been teaching you now for over 20 years. And you're beginning to see it on the planet now.
It was approximately 18 years ago when I gave you some information that said, when everybody can talk to everybody, there can be no secrets. This was literally before the internet. If we had told you at that time that you would carry around devices that would put you in touch with everything all the time, this would have been something of the far future. But what it has accomplished is the fact that you no longer have the isolation attribute. You can speak to each other. There's no fear of who the other group is. You start to enjoy each other's cultures. You start to reveal things that used to be hidden, that could be hidden because you never talked to the other one. That's number one. So increased communication between humanity is one of the attributes of peace. Here is another attribute: a longer lifespan and the remembrance in the Akash even of past lives that experienced war. Now this falls within the category of an evolving humanity. Part of the evolution of human beings will be an awakening Akash. We have spoken of this before. And in this particular subject of war and peace, of evolution of humanity, the evolving awakening Akash means you are going to start remembering what didn't work in many of the past lives that you've had. Instead of a system that you have now of a lower consciousness that literally doesn't even remember that you had a past life at all. This is the awakening we start to speak of. In the West, this will be confusing. Here, there is an acknowledgement of a system of lifetimes. In a Western world, there is not. So look to this. More and more exposure of the potential and the possibility that humanity goes through a cycle where the soul returns. That's two. There are other attributes you could also point to. The evolving human spirit is going to start giving you things you didn't expect. And one of them will be the ability, finally, to have technology combined with consciousness, which is going to start solving problems that heretofore could not be solved. Kryon has come under criticism many times for being the Pollyanna channel. That is to say, only good things in the future. And the criticism goes like this. Well, that's nice, Kryon, but you don't really truly understand how humanity works, or you would not say the things you're saying. And that, my dear human beings, is one of the biggest issues that you must go through, judging the future on what's happened in the past. I'm going to explain, and I'm going to bring you into a circle of explanations and predictions. Human consciousness at its best is spectacular. Human consciousness at a high level starts to invite the kinds of inventions on this planet that cannot be weaponized. And we've said this before to you as well. And through that window will come inventions that will solve the problems that you do not think can be solved. There are some problems that sociologists and science say cannot be solved because they say they're systemically unsolvable. In other words, the very system creates the problem, and you cannot then solve the problem because the system is the system. And this is where it gets good, because the system is what is changing. And that is different from any time in human history. Let me give you an example of how higher consciousness, thinking above the system, and also that which is coming in invention, works together to start cleaning up the planet in a way you never expected, or giving you resources you never expected. The system says there's limited resources. The system is based in an old energy. The truth is, there are not limited resources at all. You just haven't found out where they are yet. Imagine a city that needs water, and the city grows and grows, and fresh water is not available. Now the system, the paradigm says this: all fresh water comes from the sky. Whether it's in the snow that's melting or the rain that falls, that is the fresh water. All the other water on the planet is salt. Therefore, it is Gaia, or the system of Gaia, that is the best desalination process ever. And so what do? Well, the humans say, if we could only get it to rain more, then we would have more fresh water. And so pouring in is the funding that would change the weather, perhaps, or bring the rain clouds in, perhaps, or make them rain more, perhaps. And all of that has been relatively unsuccessful. And so you end up shipping water from one area to another at great expense. What if I told you this, that the system can be changed with invention? What if it was possible to bring in water the same way the clouds do? What if you could extract water from the air? And you will say, wow, that would be great, but we don't think so. Well, think again. It is possible, and you will discover it. Cities on the coasts will find brand new methods of desalination that does not require heat in a real time to give fresh water to any city that is on the coast. It changes then the system of fresh water. Do you see what I'm saying? When the paradigm changes, then the problem is no longer the problem. So what you need is paradigm shift. What's the planet going to do about a grid system of electricity that is failing? You cannot keep up with it. The population goes too fast, and the system will not sustain itself with the coming cold. Electricity is in trouble, and we have told you this in the past. Perhaps some of you have seen even some power failures today. It is common here, dear ones. The grid system is barely sustainable in this land. And so there is a systemic problem. What do? More wires, more generators, more fuel to make the electricity. What if the whole idea of distributed electricity goes away and you don't have wires? And that is also what is coming, because the generation of electricity, energy, in several ways
that doesn't require distribution because it's no longer centralized is what's coming. Electricity that's generated in neighborhoods for only the neighborhood. And it's generated in ways that are not only extremely new, but do not require any of the resources that you currently use to make electricity. We've told you even before, one of the secrets to what you are discussing as free energy requires magnetism. Magnets are forever. They push and they pull literally for thousands of years, and they cost nothing. There is a way, all coming for these kinds of things. Water, power. But what about this? What are you going to do about population explosion? Now, I talk to the group that is here. The ones that listen have not experienced what you experienced yesterday, the day before, the day before. When you walk out of this hotel, some of you want to cover your nose and your mouth. There is pollution. The pollution lays on the city in such a degree that it often blocks out the sun. When aircraft land in this city, they give visibility rules that are different from other cities. For the visibility rules almost always are not weather related. They're pollution related. In addition, it's overcrowded. In addition, the religion or the belief system says that life is precious and that having many children is a good thing. In this land that is 1/5 of the Earth's population, the growth rate is the entire population of Australia every year. Now, what do? Kryon, what invention is going to solve this? That is the doubter, who is saying, well, Kryon, there's only so much you can do with invention. And that's correct. But what you have not thought of is what you don't know. I want you to think for a moment about something that might happen, that I am telling you will happen. And the reasoning will be about the spiritual system. I have given you information all through this trip that the source is here, that this particular land supports the beginning idea of a oneness, turning inside with self-realization instead of outside to profit worship. That it's the closest thing you will find to the truth of what the higher self will give you, of what the other side of the veil has been trying to give you and tell you through a low consciousness now turning in to a higher consciousness. The solution to everything that is in India that you believe is systemic will start solving itself because of the Hindu. Listen. Within a few years, a growing movement will show itself. It's already here. And it's a new philosophy and a question that is a dichotomy. And the question comes from the young Hindu who are very much into oneness, who are looking around and saying there's a dichotomy here, mother and father, that you have created and that you have never thought of. We believe in the preciousness of life. We believe in the preciousness of all living things, of the animals, of the humans, of Gaia itself, the beauty of all these things. and we are poisoning all of it. That has to be contrary to the very essence and the core of Hinduism. And in the process of that realization will then come the funding, the reasoning, the voting for those in charge to clean this place up in a way that you've never been able to do before because of the religion, because of the belief system. Oh, it even gets better. There will be the acknowledgement, the aha, that although life is precious, you could make it better in the cities with fewer people. And the way to do that would be to have fewer children. Do you see the circle of reasoning? It will not come from the government. It won't come from an invention. It's going to come right out of the preciousness of the oneness of Hinduism. When they realize finally they are poisoning the precious life that is everything that oneness teaches. Therefore, you'll start to see an evolution of consciousness based on the oneness that will then clean the air, reduce the population, and slowly have it come to a place that is reasonable instead of the place where it is today, where it seems to be literally out of control. That is what higher consciousness is about. It starts to then affect the entire planet. And in the process, dear ones, war will not occur. You have 2 generations or so before this will be realized, that all the countries will put together even a declaration that the idea of killing each other is abominable, is not humane, is not what humans do anymore. A declaration of high consciousness for a planet in transit. This is just one of the things that you can look forward to that is coming. You live in difficult times because the old and the new are still clashing. You've only been a few years out of 2012. And so there's more coming, more clashes coming, more of the old against the new. But slowly, the light and the oneness will be realized as the way. And there will be those who see it who are not spiritual at all. It simply will be logical. And that is another part of the human growing up into a realization that these things are self-evident and not necessarily spiritual. Do you see how that might work with a great deal of the population that doesn't necessarily believe in Kryon or spiritual things, but they will see the truth of it and participate in it anyway? There'll be more. And so it is.
So what a beautiful place we have come to. The peace, tranquility and serenity is all around us. And one of the best places to commune with the Creator is in Gaia, the purity of Gaia. And the rivers that flow down these mountains have trickled down from the glaciers, the frozen waters that hold the ancient energies, just like time capsules. And as the glacier waters melt and trickle down, those ancient energies and the purity trickle down with it into the foothills and down into this beautiful place that we are sitting in. So let's give thanks to Gaia, to the purity that Gaia has to offer us. where it makes it so easy to connect with the creative source. And it makes it so easy for us to be in harmony and to go inside, finding that peace within us that has that same exact purity as the glacial waters of the Himalayas.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. I want to take a moment for you to feel the serenity. You're in the foothills of the Himalayas. DHARAMSHALA is where the Tibetan government is in exile and His Holiness the Dalai Lama has his home. It is a precious place, and you can feel the energy of this, all of it. There is so much that I could give you at this point about the way things work. We'll give it to you in pieces so it makes sense. Sometimes the things that I tell you are not necessarily the full belief of those who live here. And if that is so today, it is because new energy is upon this planet, and that changes some of the basic principles that they teach here and always have. Again, we say, doesn't it make sense that as the relationship to the Creator begins to change and be closer, that some of the attributes of the systemic things that you've learned would also change their paradigm? There is synchronicity afoot. And you'll know more about that in a moment. I would like to talk in this brief channeling about the Akash. We do this for a reason. For the Akash is something that is known by almost every citizen of this land. The Akashic record, the amount of lifetimes and energy, is a staple of belief. I would love to give you some information, some of which I've done before. But in this energy, it's even more profound. Each one of you has a record of lifetimes on the planet. Most of you here are old souls. And in this new energy, there is an awakening. An awakening to your old soul energy. Many will come on a tour like this one and have only discovered the Kryon work recently. But it resounds to them. Because the truth, dear ones, of the creative source is something that is built to resound to the truth in you. We've talked about the match between the God in you and the truth of what is here and how things work. If it's true that you have records of lifetimes inside you, how does it work? We've given you information in the past about the comings and goings of humanity, about the cave of creation, about the crystalline. That's not going to be repeated. Instead, I want you to know personally how this beautiful system of the Akashic record works in each of you. You wish to linearize all things that sound like a library. And the Akashic record sounds like a library. And so some of you will visualize bookshelves perhaps, stories of your lives arranged in linear fashion and ready for you to open and view, perhaps through Akashic readers or perhaps through enlightenment. Nothing could be further from the truth. Every single lifetime, when it goes into the Akashic record, is no longer single. The Akashic record is a soup, and it's one thing with all of the energies of all of the lifetimes and all of the things that you have learned and experienced. It is a non-linear package. This makes it difficult, if not impossible, to read, unless you know how. And the past life readers who have dedicated the energy to be able to do this will smile when I tell you this. They're not reading books. They are reading energy. And the energy they read comes right from you in many, many ways. Kryon, do you mean to say that the Akashic record has no organization? Dear ones, oh yes it does, but not linearly. No linear organization. It has a quantum organization. It's not a list. It is difficult to explain anything that is multidimensional to a quantum mind. But let me give you the basic. How is it organized that you would understand? And the answer is by karmic group. Now, what this means, dear ones, is that the karma that you have in the culture that you have normally responds to a next lifetime and will bring you back to the same group that you left. And in the past, karma worked this way for a reason. Some will say that it's unfinished business. It's not exactly that. Good karma and bad karma are also a misnomer, an incorrect phrase. Truly, there is no good and bad. There is simply energy which is higher and lower of a learning essence. Some of you will come back to enjoy that which is a seed you have sowed in the past. In other words, you've earned something, and you come back, and there it is. Some of you have unfinished business because there are things that took place in the lifetime that you would come back and finish. And you might say, well, that then was a low consciousness or a negative karma. Oh, really? Let me ask you this. What if your partner dies in the last lifetime and you both come back and you find him or her again? Oh, is that a negative karma? That's unfinished business. There's a lot of categories that you could look at. Then we've told you many times, over 20 years ago, that the new energy is going to start creating a new paradigm of karma. That in an old energy, karma was needed to push you and pull you. And now there is no real need for it, old soul. Instead, think of this. You come back in fresh, and the karma that you developed in many lifetimes can be dropped. Why would you do such a thing? And the reason is because you are now in control of the light, of the things that you will go and do and perceive and have intuition. You will not miss out on things that you would have had that are good and positive, because your new intuitive light, your enlightenment, will steer you to the places that will be the most benevolent, will be the most healing, the one that would give you the most youth, If you are on board with the basic premise of turning inward into the oneness of yourself, which we call the realization of self. Who are you? What are you here for? What is that which is the intuitive thought that you have? And that's when the Akash really starts to speak. Now, some of you have been told that the Akash is responsible for several things in your life that push and pull you around. Indeed, even without karma. If you had a past lifetime where you drowned, the chances are you won't want to be in water. And you can project this to many things. But dear ones, you still can drop your karma, and those things may still be there. Oh, there's so much more. What is it that you can sense in your past lives that may give a hint to where you've been and what you've done? You can't read a book. It's not in a chronological order. So the things that stick out are energy. The energy of a past life drowning, it sticks out. What about these things? If you are here and later on your way to Nepal, the question may be, do you have a lifetime here? Do you resound to it? And then there would be those who say, well, I don't know how to begin that process. I don't feel anything. Dear ones, most of you won't feel anything. That's not the way it works. The Akashic record, dear ones, speaks not to the brain, not to the emotions. It speaks to the pineal. And the pineal then is responsible for intuitive flashes. And so a multidimensional energy of the Akash doesn't talk in a linear way so you can feel that you've been here. Let me tell you how it works. And then you can test yourself. When my partner was very small, his mother and father took him on a tour of a Navy ship, an old one. He was less than 10 years old. When they got into a certain place on the ship, he smelled old, stale diesel oil. His mother reacted and said, "We have to get out of here." My partner went, "Oh yeah." He liked it. You see, it triggered memories, not of past lives, but the fact that the smell meant something. He had smelled that before. He liked it. Indeed, in the next years, on into the Kryon work, he had proof, as much proof as you can ever have in a linear way, that he was a sailor. And he died in World War II. These are the kinds of things the Akash is good at. When he learned that he was an Australian sailor, he said, "When I go to Australia, I'll try to feel something." He felt nothing. But then he took a harbor tour, and they had not yet replaced some very old buoys, the things that float in the water, that ring the bells, that warn of things, that will keep a channel clear at night and day. And that's where he saw it. There was a coat of arms. It was a visual on the buoy. Subsequently replaced completely, he recognized the coat of arms, an old one, and it was the one of his Navy. This is how it works. The senses give it away. Smell, visual. That is what it is. and sounds. How will you react when you hear some of the things you're about to hear? Perhaps the metal bowls, the real ones, not the tourist ones. Perhaps the prayer wheels. Perhaps the voices or the incantations of those you call monks. That is audient. How will you react to sandalwood? How will you react to the visual of patterns, of mandalas, of things that you are going to see perhaps for the first time, but your brain will go, oh yeah, this is how to look. These are the things that will give away the fact you've been here. Now, not all of you have, dear ones. I know that. But some of you have. You will relate to it. There should be joy. And when you do, I want you to know this. There's nothing you have to do because of it. It is completely for your own enlightenment. That your Akash is so grand that you've been here as an ancient. And you've touched the oneness of God and carried that right into this life, listening to this channel. That's profound. So as you tour the rest of the places on this, the Kryon tour, use your senses, not your linearity. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. We continue to be in Dharamshala. Dharamshala is the place where the Tibetan government is in exile. It is a precious place, known by many. And it's a good place for me to continue a discussion. And the discussion is about a revealed Akash. Now, dear ones, we do not always or even often go into an advanced state of training or information, because you get into the issue of a multidimensional teaching. It is so difficult to describe the oneness that truly is attainable in these lands, because you surpass the linear and you go completely past that which you would expect. And this is why you will often see the expression, the explosion of enlightenment. It's almost like you go beyond a certain point, and then suddenly there is an explosion, an aha. And you will find yourself thinking differently, perceiving differently, and all things change inside you. And that is what this land is known for. The achievement of the nirvana, that which is the oneness with everything, in such a way that you are in touch fully with the peace of God inside. The last time we were together, I spoke of the Akash. I gave you hints of how it works. It is a soup of remembrance. It is not linear. It is not a library as you would perceive it. And it's difficult for any human being to truly decipher the nuances of what you call your Akashic record. We told you last time that the things you remember are not what you think. They are not the faces or the times or the events, but they're more of the emotions and the senses, the smells, the colors, and the remembrances of the sounds that somehow might trigger where you have been and what you've gone through. So now let's get into the personal, the faces. But they're not necessarily faces. I would like to talk about what else the Akash remembers and what is in that soup. And what might be in that soup if you had an explosion of enlightenment? If you were able to achieve the oneness, would the Akashic perception suddenly also change? And the answer is yes. Have you ever looked at someone and said, "I know you"? And for most humanity, the answer is yes. You don't have to be an old soul to remember these things. Somehow it's familiar. And it may not necessarily be a face, but there's something within the personality that you start to recognize. It goes way beyond that, dear ones. Let's start talking about what else is in the Akash. When I spoke to the group in Delhi, I told them that in the Akash were pieces and parts of the souls of those you've loved and lost. Now that's a very advanced thought. It's not necessarily what is taught in these lands. But it starts to explain some things that you feel. Is it possible that those who you've passed on in your life that are blood relatives, at some level, are continuing the journey with you? And the answer is yes. Dear ones, in your sweetest hours, for those of you who've lost your parents, do you find yourself talking to them? Do you find for a moment that there may be an awakening, a doorway where you feel them in a very precious way? The Akash hides so much, and the more you are in touch with the oneness of yourself, the more obvious these things become. Do you think it's possible that all those that have passed over, that you call family, are with you still in some way that is magnificent? Again, the answer is yes. Some will say, well, how can I develop this more? It's not about developing it. It's about allowing it. Again, the disconnection from process is the answer. The disconnection from linearity is the answer. For you sit and ponder the fact that inside you could very well be a piece and a part of that which you thought you had lost in them. And it is there, because that is an elegant system. It's a system of enlightenment. There are so many humans that would never, ever feel this, or even believe it. But we present it to you so that you can at least examine it for its reality, its truthfulness, and also apply it to perhaps what you felt on your own with those you've loved and lost. The system exists for a reason. The system of the Akash, in its very basic form, exists for karma. But when you start enlarging it and enhancing it, and you start looking at it with full enlightenment, it explodes with what is there. And suddenly you realize there's so much there in remembrance of good things, of challenges, and also of the family which is there. Why is it put there? Dear ones, it is put there so that as you start examining these things, in the light of oneness, in the explosion that you are calling that which is enlightenment, it soothes your soul. It's a help for humanity that cries for those that they've lost, who wishes that they would be back. This is a magnificent gift for you, to know that you are never alone, and that a piece and a part of your family arrives with you as soon as they pass over. Within a 3-day period, it begins. I have a challenge for you, for all listening to this. Could you begin to teach your children early that the day that you close your eyes in what is called death and transition, that you pass partly into them so they'd never be alone? A child who starts to hear this early will start to accept it and have a better pathway to an enlightened state of the Akash, expecting to feel it, knowing you're there, and the comfort that you're not gone. Is this too strange for you to tell the children? Can you see the sense in it, where they would then expect this and be comforted by it and know the truth of it and cognize it as something that is real? Let's go to the next step. And this is one that not all will achieve. But in the evolution of the Akashic awareness, there's something else. You may have heard that specifically in this land, that there are some who become fully aware and know of their next incarnation. Now that would require, would it not, an extended Akash. If I took you back to the original teaching, many years ago, we taught of the cave of creation, that your Akash and how it is stored on the planet never leaves this planet. In transition, you move to that which we have metaphorized as the cave of creation, and you leave the essence of your Akash in what we have also metaphorized as a crystalline substance. And you pick it up again when you return. It never leaves the planet. It belongs to the planet. Gaia knows who you are. What if you reached an attainment of enlightenment that was so great that right now, as you are a human being, you can also travel to the cave of creation and see what's next? And that is a doable thing, dear ones. Not for everyone, but for those who have questioned whether it is even possible. Now I have just given you how it works and the fact that it is indeed possible. Can you see the theme of this? The theme is that the higher you connect with yourself and the oneness of all things, the clearer these things become. And for those of you having trouble connecting, again I will tell you, get out of the linearity. Get out of the processes. Get out of the objections of the whys and the hows and the what ifs. That is the intellect which lays upon you, which also is very much part of the ego that analyzes what you think is possible or not. If you can get rid of that and come to a place where you simply are, and the being that you are is one with everything for a moment, things begin to clear. I'm not done. In this soup of the Akash, there is even more. For the Akash permeates your DNA. It is the main remembering source for you. It drives so much of what you are and helps you to remember, gives you the wisdom of the path and the past, and pushes forward your evolutionary soul. For the past lives that you have had, dear ones, are experience. And the more you can then cognize this and remember it, like any other experience, they become steps in a school. Old soul, you've been those places and you've done those things. And suddenly you start to remember this and you never have to do them again. There is more to teach, but that's enough for now. Enjoy this monastery where these things are taught and where there are those who become one with everything. And so it is.